So here in the Salt Lake Valley, we were given an NHL hockey team. I've worshipped hockey my whole life. It was
Mhm.
such a cool experience to follow this team and be around them. You know, I see them train. They train at a facility about 15 minutes away from my house. It's the Olympic Oval that they were training at last year, and I got to
Mhm.
see what they were doing, and I also got to watch what they were doing. You know, all summer training in preparation for the season. You know, it's sexy. It's really cool. It's the bounding and jumping and doing the skating stuff and side to side. Last year we
Yep.
had two of our key defensemen that had terrible injuries and had to miss like 50 and 60 games each from these injuries. Now, hockey obviously is a very brutal sport. You get injured, people get injured. Injury
Yeah. You have to.
prevention, injury prevention, in my opinion and in your opinion, should be the top priority for any trainer out there. I'm looking
That
at
is
the way
correct.
they're training, even at the professional level, and I think to myself, like, man, I think I would do that differently, but I'm not their head trainers, and these are professional athletes, and you know what I mean? Like I know it's pure speculation, but first, I guess the first part of this question is: would you train them differently than you train anybody else? You would train these professional athletes
Yeah.
the same. And
Yeah.
do you believe that injuries would be decreased? Again, pure speculation. If they
Mhm.
trained in a slow burn fashion versus the way that I'm witnessing
Oh,
them train.
absolutely. You know what an athlete is? An athlete is a human being that engages in athletics. That's it. The end. So yeah, I would train them exactly the way I train somebody who's not athletic, because the human body is the human body. Your biceps are your biceps. Your quadriceps are your quadriceps. Doesn't matter if they're on me or on, Messi, right? So, and anything that causes an injury, like some of the plyometric stuff they do, so is like I said, it's like malpractice. You would have to say, what is plyometrics? That kind of jumping off boxes and things like that. What is that actually doing? What am I? Why you say to the trainer? Okay, stop. What do you do with that athlete there? You're doing that professional hockey player. Why are you doing that? Why? What is the purpose of making him jump up and down off of boxes and pulverize his meniscus cartilage? Why? And then usually their answer is, well, it's explosive power. That's not the answer. What causes explosive power? Well, fast movement. What causes fast movement? So they don't think critically, where it all boils down to stronger muscles. Muscles are force producing engines, and they're capable of producing as force enough to injure yourself. Right? So, like, would you make that professional hockey player jump off boxes that were 14 feet high? Oh my God, no. Really? Why? Why? Why not? If jumping off a 4-foot box is so good, let's try a 14-foot one. Oh, no, what? Right. Okay. So the 4-foot one's okay. So it's a what is it called in that book, in that business book, Good to Great, or It's Built to Last by Jim Collins. He talks about the flywheel. Once a concept about something, could be about exercise, nutrition, like glucose is the main source of the body's fuel. It's like, well, no, it's not, unless you make it that way. Once that concept is in the flywheel that's been turning and churning over years, it's very difficult to stop that momentum. Very, very, very difficult. And like Mark Twain said, the truth is easy to kill, but a lie well told is immortal. And so many lies, as you know, in the nutrition and fitness industry. There are so many. So
Yeah. Okay. Well said. That's great. I did want to ask you, when somebody is approaching, again, reaching the signal to send to their body that they
mhm.
need to improve their strength, improve their lean mass, all the things we're
Yeah,
looking for to trigger
yeah,
muscle success.
yeah,
What does that practically look like? If somebody's thinking like, I don't know what that feels like,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm there or not. Like, how do you help somebody determine whether they've gotten to that point or not?
Well, it depends on the individual. I might, for example, what I might say is, have you ever like been late for an appointment and the elevator's out and you're on the 6th floor and you just bolt up the stairs? Floor 3, your thighs are so on fire that you got to stop for a second and before you can continue, because you can feel your leg muscles are just seizing up on you. So that is what we call high intensity effort. High intensity effort is the stimulus for your brain to think, shit, we're inadequate. We need more little myofibril fibers in order for us to go up to the fourth floor. So your body will stimulate more as time goes by. That's the feeling that we're trying to achieve as best as we can. Not today, not the first time, but eventually we want to get to the point where you feel that fire in the particular muscles we're working that literally makes you incapable of performing or doing another repetition in that particular exercise. So it's arduous and it is uncomfortable. But, you know, I might say, let's say it's a doctor. I'd say, remember how difficult medical school was? How much concentration and focus you had to put in? So it would kind of depend on the individual, but basically that's how I would describe it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And we get the people that tell us, well, okay, so I did a high intensity workout. I did a hard workout yesterday. I feel pretty good and recovered. So I went back to do another workout today.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my body is capable of doing, you know, 4 workouts, 5 workouts, 6 workouts a week. And I people have this backwards, and I'll tell them, well, okay, then yesterday you did not do high intensity training. Maybe you thought you did, but if you're able to do a workout today, you didn't do high intensity training. You had a workout.
That was my first thought, was when they said, well, I did a high intensity workout on Monday. Tuesday, I felt like I could do it again. It's like, well, then you didn't do a high intensity workout on Monday. Now, unless you're like 19 years old or something, you know, and you recover, you know, like the younger you are, the faster recovery ability is. So put a 20-year-old healthy kid that eats really well and sleeps really well and has good parents and isn't all stressed out. Put a 19-year-old kid, go to the gym 4 days a week, lift weights 4 days a week in a high intensity fashion and get away with it. Probably. Yeah. But the idea here, even for that 19-year-old, is what Arthur Jones said, which was, let's try and discover the least amount of exercise we require, not the most we can withstand. So I might say to that 19-year-old, let me ask you a question, Joe. Let's say you knew that going into the gym twice a week was as good or maybe slightly better than 4. Would you go 4 or would you go 2? So why don't we try to figure out that? Now, there are people who are hell-bent on the gym. Why? They don't drink, they don't smoke. The gym is their bar. Their gym is their hangout. They love being there. They want to be there for hours, and they want to be there virtually every day, except on Sunday when they go to church or whatever. So those people have to figure out ways to train that are productive in order for them to stay in the gym. So bodybuilders and people like that, they discover very time inefficient, effective ways to train. Whereas high intensity training, slow burn, what we do is very time efficient, effective ways to train and safer as well. So, you know, that's really, but there is good research to show that I think Dr. Wayne Westcott actually and colleagues performed these studies, other people as well, but where they found that the most productive frequency, I think James Fisher, right? And Stuart Phillips, I believe, and a couple other professionals that I respect very much, discovered that three strength training sessions a week seems to produce the best results. However, 2 weekly sessions, high intensity strength, like session, take an exercise to failure, 2 produce like 96% of the benefits of 3. So, yeah, why bother? Westcott's research, I think, showed that 1 high intensity personal training session a week produces about 70% of the benefits. I think his studies were 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I remember these were all beginners, so it's you don't really, but basically produce 70% of the benefits of training 3 times a week. So I say to clients, look, if you come once a week, especially in an untrained state, you're going to do just great. You're going to get great results. If you can throw in another one or maybe come 3 times in a 2-week period, research seems to suggest that it would be a little bit better. So that's how sort of how I approach it and apply it.
The way I explain it to people, and this is easy for me because I have a small yard, but imagine like mowing your lawn, you make one pass and it looks pretty darn good. You definitely mowed the lawn. If you did a second pass, you might be able to add like a checker pattern or whatever. It looks a little nicer. It's a little better. But how many people would say like, oh, that looked better. Now I'm going to do a third one. No, well, you're just, it's diminishing returns. You're just wasting your time. And I think you and I would both think about that 19-year-old and think about him working out 4 times a week and kind of think like, man, he's quite the athlete now. How much better could he be if he did hold himself back and do 1 or 2 really true high intensity workouts? Think of the performance gains versus just doing like what we call with running like junk miles. You're just running a bunch of miles in the middle that's just wearing you down. You're not getting any quality there.
Yeah, unfortunately, well-meaning strength and conditioning coaches, especially in high school, but in college as well, if they applied our principles, they wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
What would they be doing? They'd be standing there instructing people on the universal machine once, maybe twice a week. Like, and especially if you're like, I also wrestled in high school a little bit. Not I was terrible, but the amount of practice we had, I was exhausted. And then when you'd go to wrestle and you're like, oh my God, like I feel like jelly already. So, but if the coach only had to spend an hour or 2 a week with us training, not the wrestling coach, the trainer, they what would be the justification for paying them what they're paying? So they have to concoct all kinds of cockamamie training things to make it look like they're useful.
Yeah. Man, I love that.
It's a shame because there are a lot of athletes right now, as we speak, there are a lot of high school athletes whose careers are being destroyed by the very trainers that are training them.